Hello, hello, and welcome to the Psych Tech at Work podcast. I am your host, Dr. Charles Handler, coming to you live from the UNIVAC studios here in beautiful New Orleans, Louisiana. My guest today, Doug Berg, Chief Matcher and co-founder, Chief Executive Officer, etc. at Match2 Technologies. Doug is a longtime successful technology entrepreneur, especially in the HR and recruitment space. Doug is the only person I've ever met who wears flip-flops when presenting at HR Tech. Tons of bonus points for that. And today we're going to talk about, we've lived some parallel lives in some sense with HR technology for recruitment from some slightly different perspectives, but we're going to talk about why hiring is broken, why it still hasn't been able to be fixed, why AI might not be that thing that's going to fix it. Who knows? But Doug's going to talk a lot from a point of experience around the failures of HR technology for recruitment and the potential opportunities that lie ahead. So without further ado, welcome Doug from the snowy Northlands of Minnesota, right?
Yeah, sir. Luckily, a snow globe, not a deep freeze for right now, anyhow. So,
yeah, we had 32 here earlier this week.
Very nice.
Yeah, I had to move all my tropical plants in, but it's back up to like 70. So, perfect weather for the immune system. So,
yeah.
Good deal. Thanks for joining me today. You know, we've known each other for a while, but we probably haven't ever had this type of conversation. We're always BSing about travel or sports or whatever. And you've been in a circle of people I've known well for a long time. So we have a lot of great people in common. So tell us a little bit about what you do, your background. You know, I think you've had a really interesting travels in the world of HR tech. They're probably not exactly like those of many other folks. So let us know.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I've been kind of building talent tech on either side of the industry for almost 30 years now. I didn't mean to do it. You know, I think anybody that gets in the recruiting business kind of didn't go to school or dream of that when they were a kid. So,
yeah.
You kind of fall into this stuff. And I was a tech guy originally, and I basically love the technology stuff, especially technology careers. And then the internet hit. And I was a recruiter, by the way, for 7-8 years and built a big consulting and staffing company. So I've worked a desk, and it really, when you interact with literally thousands of candidates and talk with them about their career, their expectations, their hopes, you really get into the psychology of how people think sometimes, and about what not just their experiential understanding, but their aspirational, their preferences probably guide their motivation for making change decisions even more than, a particular skill or something like that. And so it's just always been interesting to me. I had to set all these new fields up in my database that were not like, what tech skills does the person have or what competencies? It was always like they wanted to bring their dog to work, or they wanted to be close to home, or have their Fridays off so they could go to their cabin. I mean, it was just incredible, the kinds of things that would actually motivate people in the end. And so that gave me a lot of really interesting perspective on that. But then as I started a company called techies.com, it was one of the bigger tech LinkedIn, like even before LinkedIn existed, it was a social network for tech people. And I got to learn a lot about like how companies show up to their side, the demand side of that, how they think about buying or investing in, a solution or a web product that is supposed to somehow increase their brand equity with this audience, and or then do authentic engagement, whether it's around posting jobs or searching or getting candidates to learn about companies and say, hey, come and get me, and stuff like that. So I've just learned an awful lot about how to build a technical product and exchange with that thing. And it almost got public. We were on the plane to ring the bell at the NASDAQ, and the banker said, hey, we're going to wait a week. We see a glitch in the matrix. And that was in April of 2000, right? And so then the internet crashed and 9/11 happened. And so we unfortunately didn't get public. But everything I did in that experience, especially to help companies, when I came back around after that, and I talked to my TA folks and said, what's next? They all said, we want you to do what you did for us on Techies, but we want you to do it directly for us. Like when people are Googling for jobs, there was like 300 million searches for people jobs.
Right.
But all that happened with companies is they redirected their spend from the local paper to Monster Board.
Yeah.
And so they were still spending the same amount of money to advertise jobs. And I'm like, why is you guys are just so focused on what I need today? Like, what's your shopping? Yeah. Like, you got to start building relationships with people. I always loved it when I talked to a candidate. I tell the story when I first became a recruiter. The guys gave me 500 business cards of tech guys. And they said, go call all these people. And these are your future people. And so it took about 2 weeks, and I came back and I set the stack of 500 cards on the table. And I said, I only found 2 people that are looking for a new job. And they said, well, what'd you ask them? I said, well, I asked them, are you looking for a job? And they all said, no. And they said, well, you're asking the wrong question. Like, you don't ask them if they're happy. You ask them what would make them happier. So
there's that psychology again.
Here it is. Now, you know how many business cards I had the next 2 weeks? I couldn't even get through the 500. Every single person knew what would make them happier. And if I sit back and look at any company's career site today, all they do is advertise, here's what I'm looking for today. Never anything about like how we could help you to become your greatest self here at the company. Forget the jobs. Let us help you. And so like you've done assessments and stuff like that. And I've always just thought like, why aren't we starting with that? Why don't we, and so get to know everybody, hire and engage with who you'll need at the right time, just a more honoring way. And so that's what was Jobs to Web kind of gave birth to, this new way of thinking about how to capture everybody, engage with everybody. It was still efficient. It didn't overwhelm the recruiters. And, SAP ended up buying that company. It's still one of their biggest product lines out there. But I learned a lot about how to bring scale enterprise recruiting strategies online, which was, from the first touch of a candidate through how to capture their interest, their intent, their awareness, how to engage with them over a course of time, how to measure it, how to get recruiters to interact with. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff.
So many
tech,
so many chances to fumble the ball along the way.
Gosh, it's just crazy.
Yeah. So what's super interesting, as you're saying that, we have lived somewhat parallel lives. I mean, I went out to San Francisco to work for the first assessment company putting tests online. Super exciting, super cool. There during the 2000, during kind of that era. And of course, I'm a psychologist, so when you say it's all psychology, I'm not going to argue with that. I would say all of life and interacting with people is psychology, but you gotta. Honestly, it's just being humanistic. It's meeting people where they are and valuing who they are. I think people really respond to that. I know I do, and it's the golden rule, right? I always say the golden rule rules. But interesting from there, I had a chance to. They moved to Minnesota. I didn't want to move to Minnesota. No offense. I mean, I'm a Southerner. I can't handle the cold. I also didn't love the job opportunity that I was offered. So I ended up working for Monster in the Bay Area during 2000, doing recruitment strategy work for Silicon Valley companies. So my whole world was changed when I saw that the funnel of hiring is not assessments only. It's everything. And it's probability. Who are you getting in the funnel and how are you engaging those people? And it just changed my entire worldview of what needed to happen to hire people. So it was a really, really good education for me. And back then people were still paying to put friggin' yellow pay, TMP stands for telephone marketing professionals, right? And that's Monster, right? And then I did a bunch of contract work for Monster, Career Builder, one of the first matching type things for a job board. I had a project with Career Builder where we were literally fielding out every job and every skill and everything, and then it had to go in, match the newspaper, and then they were going to have candidates fill, or people looking for jobs fill out that information, and that was cool. Like, wow, we're doing this, but we're still bound to the damn newspaper, right? When's the last time you picked up a newspaper for a job, right? So, and then I just followed. Obviously, I've been involved with tons of startups, tons of HR tech companies, tons of recruiting software companies, not starting them, founding them, and selling them. That would be nice, but more just working with them. So we've had some parallels there, and I think we have some simpatico with all of this. And look, here's where we are now. So, geez, what's happened? If you could have been back there in 2000, looking at how we're using tech to make hiring better, to how we ended up having to invent ATSs to handle everything, and those didn't even work. But now, obviously, I don't even have to say the reason why I'm saying that right now is so significant compared to the past. But, if you could have been sitting there at your desk, 20 years ago and seen what we have now, or even longer than 20 years ago, what would you have thought? Like, how the hell are we processing all this crazy stuff right now?
Yeah, look, I mean, I sold through the first web phase, right? And everyone was interested in the internet, but no one really used it really well at all. And so the only thing you could do, I mean, look, I was the founder of the first internet job fair. Like
Wow.
I owned internetjobfair.com, and we would
Wow.
run TV ads and radio ads, and we'd get 10 companies, and they would be the companies you could come learn all about and see pictures of the people. And what was interesting is none of the companies during the internet job fair could get on the internet, Charles. Like I had to bring AOL discs to the homes of the recruiters in order to get them on the internet, and then they would never log in. So 2 to 3 weeks into the first internet job fair, we had 1,000 people, 1,000 big mainframe programmers come and put their resume in and say, come and get me. And here are these companies that are desperate to hire these people, spending $5,000 every Sunday, not getting one resume through the U.S. mail or fax. And they call me up and say, your whole internet job fair thing's a complete failure. And I'm like, well, whoa. Haven't you logged in? There's 1,000 people. And they're like, well, I can't get in the internet. My company won't let me. Is there any way you can fax me their resumes?
Oh, God.
So I ran back to my tech guys and I'm like, look, the only way our customers are going to get value is if I actually make it look like these people are applying and send a fax of their resume. And my tech guys, being tech guys, they're like, we're not doing it. It's against our, that's going backwards. And if they can't get on the internet, screw those customers. I'm going, no, we're not screwing them. We're screwing ourselves. Get the fax thing. And
right.
So and I had 1,000 pages of resumes on the floor, and everyone was all of a sudden excited and happy, and they signed up for all the future job fairs. But so I guess what I'm saying is, in psychology, value is in the eye of the beholder, and you have to be able to deliver value both to the candidate, because they saw value in going on the internet and seeing all the pictures and everything, and then to the client, I still had to deliver the facts. And then all of a sudden I get these stories where the recruiter would call the candidate and they'd say, hey, did you see us online? Yeah, and I got to meet your CIO manager. I agreed with his philosophy on how he builds tech. That's super awesome. I saw the game room and the free lunches. And, they were just like, this is unbelievable how awesome this is.
Yeah.
From the early days, right, I was able to figure stuff out about how to be pragmatically successful with all your stakeholders. And to this day, what's interesting is if I looked forward, I would have assumed by now, Charles, that we wouldn't literally still have candidates that are active participants that are locked out of the very process that that our companies are desperate to get them to be involved with.
Yeah. So interesting. Let's take a little technology journey here. So facts, right? When it's so funny that occasionally doing some kind of back office transaction with some kind of company, they request that I fax something. I typically get angry. I can't control my emotions. I don't know why. I'm just like, come on. Who even has? You can do it over the computer now and everything with a phone number or whatever. But still, I get angry. I'm like, come on. But now, we're talking about fax machines in 2000, and now we're talking about AI. Like, I was surprised, but also refreshed that you didn't even mention AI there. So that was my little prompt to try and drag us into that part of the conversation. But think about, how things have changed and how we've had to adapt, and the whole candidate experience, recruiter experience. It's kind of a quagmire right now. It's just crazy. So
and look, the employers are now complaining about AI applies. And I was at a healthcare company yesterday, and they're like, Doug, we had 440,000 applications in the last year. And we burnt down and went down. Well, how many actual candidates was that? And guess how many candidates did 440,000 applications?
5,000?
28,000.
Okay.
So that means on average, each person's doing 12 to 15 applications. And again, we put
Oh,
the candidates through the gauntlet of our process, and now we've got all these pre-screening questions
right.
and things that we think are helping to, qualify people. But all that's happened is the candidates are like, oh, you want to play the numbers game? I'll launch my own bot apply thing and
Right.
send 20 applications into you until I pick the lock on which one gets me the interview. And so the AI is actually creating more problems than it's solving. And that's why, like, our version of AI at Match 2 is, how do I do authentic interactions?
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. I mean, all the way back to, like, I was the geek tech kid that asked the first question with Taleo or RecruitSoft, the first big ATS system. I'm like, why is the apply button the only button on these jobs? Like if I go shopping on Amazon, there's an add to wish list, there's a save
Mhm.
cart, there's a share it with my, like, there's all kinds of actions I can do apart from buying. And on an ATS, there was nothing. And so I was the guy that advocated, let's put a PHP live chat on the jobs. Like, you can just put a script in. And if somebody's got a question about a job, and the recruiter's freaked out, they're like, I don't have time for this. I don't, and I'm like, well, that job's been open for 9 months. And I have to assume, like, it was a big healthcare company. If somebody's looking at a physician job, they might be a physician.
Yeah.
And so if there's actually people, they didn't even know if people were looking at their jobs at all. And so sure enough, I put the thing on. I said, trust me. So I'm sitting at the desk with the person at the company, and sure enough, all of a sudden, beep, 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 there's someone looking at the physician job. And they had 0 applications for like months.
Yeah.
And on the chat thing, I don't know if you ever saw this chat tech, but on the chat tech, it was like 11 in the morning. You can see what company that person that's visiting is at. And let's just say for fun, this was Mayo Clinic, true or not true, but it was a person from a line of health. And so you can push a chat saying, hey, I see you're on the physician job. Can I answer you? They made like 38 hires of impossible to fill candidates that would never have applied if we didn't have authentic interactions that were proactive outreach of people who were visiting on our career sites. And so, I mean, the $1 billion overlooked thing, Charles, is there is so many. I would hate to think how many awesome, talented people would have been hired into companies if they would have just thought a little differently about this forced March, apply or goodbye psychology that we have in our recruiting system. And it's all transactional. It turns everyone away. There's no other pathway. And so, like I've always said, there's this massive imbalance between the employer side of the recruiting equation, where they've got all the tech, they've got all the weapons, they've got all the pre-screening. Candidates don't have anything. They have a resume and maybe a spray apply thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're excited about, Charles, is like with Match 2, we're finally giving the candidates their own personal ATS, their universal profile, their ability to show up and say, you follow my process now, company, instead of me only following yours. And we just love how this is going to balance out the consumer side of the talent industry, because companies have integrated everything into their even their assessments. You know how that, but nobody's integrated the candidate. It's just astonishing.
Oops. Yeah. What's the point of doing that, Doug? I mean, one of the interesting things too, right? We're talking about early days of job boards, and then I'm sure we had some kind of primitive ATS thing, but you had to have some way to sort through all that. It was overwhelming, and you still didn't have a really good way to do that. In some sense, whether it's AI or fax machines, I mean, now you're getting the same kind of overwhelming thing, right? And you're using AI to screen, but you're also using, people are using AI to apply, and it just becomes really messy. And I don't know how much you're really accomplishing your goals. I mean, a lot of these platforms are sold based on efficiency. That's even really tracked very well. So it has changed in some sense because there's a lot more clever options, but I think also getting those adopted, getting people to understand the value of those. I've worked for tons of startups, and a lot of times they were job board type things a while back where, hey, we're going to give each candidate a developmental report based on, they're coming in, they're taking the assessment, and then we're going to give employers the assessment results. But those were closed ecosystems where you had to, it's a chicken and egg. Candidates don't want to be there unless employers are there. Employers don't want to be there unless candidates are there.
Yeah.
Some of them try to charge candidates, for goodness sakes. I mean, that's insanity. Every time I hear someone say, yeah, we're going to do this thing and it's going to charge candidates, well, come on, don't you know that doesn't work?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's people have been trying to find solutions, and it's hard to scale personalization, kind of, right? I think that's something that the human touch is so critical. I know I've been called by an actual recruiter, so the outbound research piece a little different, right? So, but if you have access to a talent pool, you can do your research. But when a recruiter calls me, hey, I'm flattered, right? Oh, wow, you're thinking of me for this particular thing. All right, great. Well, let's form a relationship, and a lot of good recruiters, they have especially if you're a very specific niche, you got a whole list of people, and you're constantly staying in touch with those people. They refer you to other people. So there is a beautiful part of it, but it's capturing that at scale that I think has been, difficult. And do you think AI helps at all with that, hurts with that? I mean, that scale's where it's at, right?
It is scale. And again, I think AI is one part of it, but again, I go either back to actual integrations or actual interactivity is something that like, I think, quite honestly, like, people hate Facebook. I think Facebook has done the best job of allowing me to curate my newsfeed. I can decide who's in, who should I see, who's I don't. I can snooze my mother-in-law, like these have to go from process-based systems to participative systems is what I would say, Charles.
Yeah.
And so as soon as you allow the candidate to participate in the process of whether they want an interview, whether they want you to call or not. I mean, all these companies have paid billions of dollars for CRMs, and basically they're mass marketing machines that are spamming the shit out of the candidates. And so I always like to say candidates never hear from companies when they want to, and they always hear from them when they don't want to.
Yeah.
It's because there's no just genuine control between the two parties. And so, there was a great book written a while called The Shopping Revolution, and it talked about the power shift of, retailers having all the power in the consumer relationship to now the consumer has all the power. And companies have to move away from always asking, what do we want our candidate experience to be, to saying, hey, candidate, what do you want for your experience, right? Because they're the ones that are out going across the internet and looking for things. And so I think we're going to see, if anything, hopefully, the compatibility of what the candidate's doing. It's kind of like going from a Word doc, which is a one-time document I upload to apply, to the Google Doc, where now it's a living document where I can decide who I share it with and link it to, and when and how we engage together and participate. Like, hey, I see your resume, Charles, and I saw you did this and this, but most other candidates also have that. Do you have that? Oh, you do have that. Can I add that for you, right? Like, that's where it's going.
Yeah, well, it's personalization, this is I just think of stories sometimes. I don't know how good the analogy is. I'm going to do it, but I worked at my internship. I worked at a large telecom. I was there 6 or 8 months. I did a fantastic job, of course, and I left to go back and, finish my degree or whatever. And so they had a going away thing for me, and they gave me, I don't know, it was like an umbrella and some other thing, like things I wasn't even interested in at all. And I'm like, wow, I don't know. But I love the people. I felt valued, but I'm like, this is a bunch of crap. But now they have all kind of cool things where you get a gift card, you can go shopping, you can buy whatever, something that's really meaningful to you to remember that experience a little bit more. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's about options. And, again, what's the psychology of relating to a person? And in the days of AI right now, it might get harder. We're relating to bots a lot all the time, and it's becoming kind of the expectation. And hiring is hard. I say that to everybody I work with. It's one of the hardest things in an organization with people, because ultimately you're taking unknown people, unknown entities, and you got very little time with these people, and you have very little quality touch points, to be honest, because of the machinery that has to go on. So it's difficult. And now, I don't know, AI is not, and these times, right? So talk a little bit about, what are you seeing now in the job market with the craziness of, there's layoffs, unemployment is really high, but we know people are always hiring, and there's a lot of job applicants out there now. So it seems even messier than before ever, and it's hard to understand what's really going on,
Well, and we've got our pants down on both sides as far as like how you just use data and become more efficient, right? Like, there's jobs outside of companies that get 500 applicants and there's already an offer out, but that job is still on my career site and people are still applying to it every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why haven't the applicant tracking systems figured out how to, if a job gets to a certain level and a candidate progresses to a certain spot, like maybe don't just say, hey, we're not taking any more applicants. And that would force people to then probably apply to jobs that don't have as many. So I'm not candidate 9,000, I'm candidate 9. It's just these little micro efficiencies, Charles, is where I think it's going. And so a part of what we're trying to do is what, frankly, the e-commerce business has done. Like, I mean, I've always thought if I shop on Amazon and they know I'm a man and I like 10 and a half size shoes with extra wide soles, like I wish I could take that and beacon it in my identity. And then if I go to Macy's, it instantly knows all of my attributes and
Wait, that's not happening? I feel like that's starting to happen.
That happen. Yeah, it is starting to, right? There was a thing called One Size or something like that, where if you did this on one site, you could go to another site and it knew your pant size, it knew what styles, what brands, what colors. Like it provided a cross-platform efficiency, right? And so the talent industry hasn't done that at all. And that's a part of what we're trying to do, is to allow the candidates to do portable personalization. Like if I'm going to get it, I don't know if you remember, like 10 years ago, everyone tried to implement schema.org, which was this normalized way of putting tags on all your jobs.
Right.
And you know, it kind of got some traction. The boards loved it because they could scrape jobs and they knew what was a location and what was a job title and all that. But nobody's done it in reverse to allow the candidate to show up on a Workday site, Avature site, Brass Ring site, to say, Doug, welcome to Wells Fargo Bank. You know, we see you're a data scientist. We hire people like you a lot. Oh, you know, you like flex work schedules. You know, are really good with Tableau, it looks like, or you built BI kind of stuff. So like that to me brings hyper efficiency. And what I think is interesting is if you have that link to the candidate and they're going through an application process, like we might have a nurse that says, hey, I do wound care with pediatrics, but I'm not working third shift. Like, don't talk to me about third shift. Well, if that's all of a sudden on my record in match 2, and that match 2 thing is connected to my candidate record at Phenom, at Beamery, at all of these CRMs, God, imagine how more efficient that is, because now I'm not sending job alerts for third shift from anywhere to that candidate because they've said, I'm not interested in it. Like, to me, that's like hyper efficient. So,
you know, when I was working at that first assessment firm, putting tests online, right, and their whole thing was, we want to be the passport. We want to be the passport. Everybody's going to have the stamp and every employer is going to recognize it. So when you think about it at that level, it's difficult to get a universal standard accepted. But at the same time, you know, I have this, now fast forward, I have this vision of, you know, hey, someday you're just going to have glasses, you're going to be looking and talking to people and their employment profile kind of thing is going to come up and you say, oh, wow, you know, you might be good. You're an astronaut. You might, we're looking for an astronaut, or my friend's looking for an astronaut. Who knows? Of course, I have the Ray-Ban Meta glasses, and you know you can't, what do they call, dox people? You know, look at people and know who they are. So there's a huge privacy concern, obviously, with all that stuff. But imagine if you allowed that, or you went to some kind of a career fair or something, and you know, the exchange of information based on a profile somebody has that keeps accumulating, right? That's how I see it. And that's where the assessment world, I think, is going to go as well, where someone just has a signal that's relevant to the key, to the receiver that you have created. And the friction will start to go away, right? And you've got to engage people to buy into something like that, for sure. And it's got to be worthwhile, and the noise has to be kind of low. And so I think that's the other, we've talked about it a lot. I'll just reframe it. It's the signal to noise ratio. How do we get on top of that?
Look, this is where AI is playing a really neat role in this, right? Because you used to have common taxonomies and common ontologies and all of this kind of, and everyone had to speak. You don't have to speak the same language anymore. AI understands textual relevancy.
I know.
And so, you know, if on every job description, there's like, you must have an MBA in marketing or 5 years of equivalent experience. Well, put a stack of resumes on a recruiter's desk. He won't get through the first 3 because it will just take too long to do the 2 from math to figure out whether people have equivalents to offset the MBA. AI does it like that, right?
Why do we even have resumes anymore, for goodness sake? It's like an appendix, you know? I guess LinkedIn is kind of a de facto resume, but imagine if we can bring a resume to life where you don't even have to ask for that friggin' document, you know?
Yeah, and look, how I describe what I need in a person to come and work at my company and how the candidates describe the exact same thing is almost never the same. So you
Yeah.
need constant interpretation between those things in order to even get to the kinds of assessments and stuff that I think you and your teams are going to be able to really understand beyond the rec to resume experiential fit. What's the culture? What's the attitudinal? What's like all of the other elements that we need to make sure that this is going to come together right? So, but today I still honestly think that the basic text definitions of what I need and what you have are just completely still at ground zero in terms of like how we do things together. I got a funny story for you. I was at one of the big tech company, and I did a search for a software quality, and no jobs came up. I'm like, you don't recruit for that? And they're like, we have hundreds of jobs open for that. And I was like, well, I just searched for software. Like, let's go to your career site, software quality. Nothing came up. And they said, well, that's because we call them SQ2s and SQ3s and SQ4s. And I was like, okay, but if I click on those jobs, it says that you need to do software quality. And they're like, well, we didn't put the full body text of the job into the index, the search index, because it takes up too much space. You know, it's just like, oh my gosh.
Little stuff, right? Little stuff.
Oh,
It happens all the time. So if you can create systems and tools that help people not fumble, there's just a lot of fumbling. You know, you could fumble the guy that invented the Post-it note for you.
Yeah.
You could fumble the guy that invented liquid soap. You know, I don't know. There's big misses. The opportunity cost as well of someone like that going to another place is big. So, you know, getting it right, it does require tools and support, though, right? I mean, you know, internal to a company, it's difficult to build this kind of stuff. And so I know, you know, I've seen a little bit about Match 2, which is your new deal. And, you know, we've been kind of building up to that, I think, by talking about all that, what doesn't work and why the psychology is so important. What are you doing? Like, how are you solving or handling these things, you know? Because I think what you're doing is pretty innovative. I don't think anybody else is really doing it.
I had a try at it, you know, but I think they went at it with too much intensity towards credentialing, verifications. They tried to get every university to reverse integrate and say, yes, Doug went to this university. Yes, he had an MBA. Yes. So I think that's what slowed them down. But look, I think at the end of the day, Charles, what OpenTable did for making booking a dining reservation easier, what Pinterest did for making shopping better, you know, what Shopify has done to make it easier for me to check out on a million different sites. The consumer examples are everywhere. And when we talk to the big platforms like the Workdays and the Phenom, and I said, why haven't you guys done this? And they said, well, one, we can't cross-share and pollinate candidate data. Every candidate is owned by one of our customers. And that's the nature of the SaaS world. But two, they said, we can't monetize the candidate. We don't know how to make money, like you said before. So we can't charge candidates to use something like this. So what do we do? And so I had figured out from my recruitment marketing days that companies will pay an awful lot of money to be able to instantly capture 10 times more talent and relationships on their career site. They will pay a lot of money to make sure we qualify people on the way through application. They'll pay a lot of money to make sure people aren't fake or unvalidated. They'll pay a lot of money to save their recruiters a bunch of time, and they'll pay a lot of money to keep their data up to date and to be first to know when any candidate goes on or off. So we basically bundled this up, built the integration ecosystem so I instantly can help any candidate to download the Uber app, right, which connects me to hundreds of drivers, and they drive me around. Well, we built the consumer application. Here's your profile. Here's your list of favorite employers. Here's your applications you've attracted or that you're tracking towards. And now this becomes your dashboard to relate to companies over your whole career. So we've got that all launched and deployed. And now all the platforms are basically adding us as the connect with technology, not the apply with, but the connect with technology that helps us to build the direct data relationship between candidates and companies, which facilitates authentic interactions and data relationships and all that other stuff. So it's been really fun to get this live, Charles, and now we're starting to see it come to life and make all of the efficiencies come online, and candidates are digging it because, I don't know if you've uploaded your resume to a board or something, but man, you just start getting spammed like crazy with college refinancing things and save money on your autos, and we can help fix your credit score. And it's like, what happened to like a genuine recruiter like wanting to see my resume? So
yeah. Well, let me see. Let's walk through it a little bit then. So I'm a job candidate. I jump into the ecosystem. I create a profile. I say who I am. And then what am I doing? Am I searching for companies and then I get into their feed? Am I looking for specific jobs? So, how am I then? Like, I'm choosing who I want to apply to, I believe, right? But
yeah.
how are you getting the attention of those people, and what's different about that dialogue than just hitting a job posting when you've joined a job board kind of thing?
So look, we're going live on hopefully thousands of corporate career sites, and
Right.
having
Okay.
a job search only capability, they'll say, hey, if you don't want to waste time searching for jobs, let us match you. Have to upload your profile. We'll show you which 3 jobs you're a perfect fit for. We'll help optimize your application. And by the way, we get to stay connected for the rest of your career. So if you don't hire the first time, so the companies are largely promoting the utilization of us, just like a restaurant would promote the use of Open Table.
Right. Gotcha.
And so then the first time a candidate does that, they set up their Match 2 account, they get their profile. For candidates that find us directly, because we promise companies, look, we're not going to create competition for your candidates. This is a relationship tool. But for a candidate, like we had one company that laid off 8,000 people, Charles.
Yeah.
And like, can we just send them to you? And they set up their Match profiles. And in those situations, I want those candidates to get exposed. So we're never going to be a job board. I'm never going to be a resume search engine. But we do have a company directory of companies that, you can use Match 2 with. And so I could come in, say I got laid off from a pharma company, and if I want to know every pharma company on the East Coast that could use a person like me, now I basically favorite all of those companies, and my resume goes directly into their hiring application. So I'm not working through a third party or a middleman anymore.
Right.
I have control over which 25 or 30 employers I know I want to work for, and now I'm broadcasting directly to them. I'm at the fingertips of the recruiters who also are getting alerts like, hey, Doug, and he fits these jobs. And so it's just a fundamentally different way to do a direct connection between candidate and company, which we think brings people together better, faster the first time and career long.
So do I get, if I'm on there and I apply to, Acme Co., am I directly talking to Ronnie Recruiter? Do I have a direct, now we're friends on this platform and we can dialogue there and you can tell me about any other jobs, et cetera? Does it get to that level?
So when you favorite a company, your resume's in like their Workday or their whatever system, Recruiter would find you, and then they, either you can apply for a specific job and it'll say, okay, cool, we'll let you know if your resume got viewed, we'll let you know if that you're going to get the interview. So think of it like a little mint.com of like what the recruiting process looks like. Ultimately, a recruiter will show up like, hey, we want to do an interview, and we're building kind of this cool Slack experience, Charles, right in the platform. So if I'm going to get the interview and they see I'm online and they're online, wham, I can have an instant chat, or I can schedule my interview online, or I can give you my background information. We're bringing Probo talent into the mix, right? So I can say, hey, if they want my references or recommendations or whatever, I can just put those in. But once I put those in for one company, guess what, Charles? They live on my profile.
Sure.
Now when I go to the second company and I apply, all of that goes in with my application. So I'm preemptively providing employers advantaged information that they might ask for later, but I'm doing it right up front. I'm giving them the full data package right away.
So what's the atoms and molecules of describing a person, right? Do you use AI to take a resume and tag people with particular skills? Do they enter their skills? Because ultimately, if you're matching people, you've got to have some, again, some signal and some reception that's as clear as possible. And I think that's always been one of the tricks of how are you doing this in a way that actually works and is fair and all that good stuff,
Yeah, so we're using some really powerful AI, of course, but we're also using some of the big traditional talent-based ontology toolkits that can look at a resume, look for inferred things, compute full years of experience around each, skill and competency, recency of use, all of that kind of stuff. And we do the same on the job side. So a company gives us their job feed. We basically pre-process those and get those ready for reception. Resume comes in, we basically process that. We try to make those matching and recommendations happen between both sides.
Mhm.
So if I'm a candidate, looking at a company and their jobs, boom, great. And then I facilitate the interactive application. On the company side, we don't do a lot just because every company's building their own AI, who's the best candidate stuff. And they're our partners. They're going to help bring us to market. And so we just said, look, we'll put better data into your system so that you can recommend candidates to jobs. Our job is to recommend jobs to the candidates when they show up on the career site. So we'll be on the candidate facing side, you be on the recruiter facing side, and everybody's happy.
So yeah, once you plug good assessment like a Provo Talent in there, you'll be on the plane to ring the bell again, right?
That's exactly right.
You got to have we're talking about people in psychology. Again, I'm obviously a little biased, but measuring things about people in quality ways where there's less to be subject to interpretation. You can just say, all right, we pretty much can tell this person, while they've been a marketing manager, boy, oh boy, their data and quantitative skills are great and they can get along with the team and, ultimately the dream and understand what it's not the dream really. I mean, in some sense, when you're matching people to jobs, you got to understand what the job is. But I think when you go to the team level, and it's been very hard for people to really crack this of, okay, here's a whole team. Here's kind of the composition of that team and these labels from an ontology, whatever. Here's the culture of the team, et cetera. What would it look like if we plug this person into that team versus this team? Or what if we move Sally over to this team and put this person? Those dynamics are always pretty complicated. And I think technology is I tried to build some of those things for startups and stuff in the past. It's hard to scale that in an analog-ish way, but what we're able to do now is incredible. But personalization in the age of AI that has a real human aspect to it, because we are going to end up with, all kind of fake, all kind of fakery. So the more genuine we can be. So we'll wind it down here, little. I appreciate your insights. I mean, if people don't know who you are, who are listening, this is a man who's really seen it all and helped start it all. And so connecting with you in this age and understanding, what you think the trends are. So, match two or whatever, if you just look at it in general, what comes next? Like take a look 10 years from now, you're wearing your flip-flops, down in Cabo, hanging out, having a tropical drink, and you're reflecting, but you're looking at what's going on now, and you're just like you might have 20 years ago when you're playing with a fax machine. I mean, what do you think is going to be going on in the world of hiring? How are people gonna find jobs and jobs find people in a way that's different than today, and still maintain the personal touch if possible?
Yeah, look, my dream, and I've had to help my two kids find jobs in the last year, right? And it's so broken and so disconnected that it's unfathomable to me. So a part of our kind of mission from God is like, we're going to go from disconnected to interconnected. I don't have to start from scratch. When I say I get laid off on Friday, I didn't see this coming. And now what? I got to build a resume and I got to go search on Indeed and I got to put these applications and I never hear from anybody. Like, to me, if in 5 years we haven't fixed that, so that if I get laid off at 9 on a Friday, I don't just, here's everything I did in the last 6 months. Here's all the companies I've interacted with and that I would like to work with. I'm available. I'm back on the market. I know exactly what I'm worth. I know exactly who needs me. Got 3 offers by 3 in the afternoon, and I know exactly where I'm. Like, the fear of being unemployed, unwanted, all of that stuff. If I can help solve that, Charles, for the entire economy, I'm very, very happy. So.
Well, they say there's an ass for every seat, basically.
Yeah.
And people are just, I'm looking at your background. People are snowflakes, right? I mean, we all have these. And again, in my world of psychology, it's about individual differences. Everybody's different. And those combinations of things are super ideal for a few things. They're really crappy for other things. And they're kind of average for other things, right? So the more you can be, this is the person, this is that snowflake. What snowball or whatever are we going to, weave them into, pack them into, where they're going to have the most impact? It's probably a really crappy analogy, but can we do that better? So far, I don't know. AI has helped us do that really better in some ways, and it's really made it harder in other ways. So can we get to the point where AI is just friggin' making it better, and it's not making it worse at the same time. That's what
Yeah,
we need
look,
to find.
that's the difference between what I'll call efficient markets and intelligent data too, right? Like
Right.
I had a generator I needed to sell, and a storm rolled through Minnesota, and I thought, hey, maybe this is a good time to sell my generator. Everyone's got. So
Obviously.
I posted this on Facebook Market. I kid you not, I had 75 people say, I'm interested in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so that when efficient markets, when done correctly,
Yep.
can really help connect buyers and sellers on every example, including jobs, careers, and all that. And the thing I loved about Facebook, I knew exactly who the person was on the buy side,
Yeah.
who I was on the sell side. They knew I had good credibility, good response, but I could turn off the listing or pause the listing, say, I think I've got somebody, stop asking me about it. And then as soon as I sold it, it told everyone, hey, this isn't available, go find the next generator. So it gave me the tooling, the information, the ability to have respectful interactions with everybody on the thing. And I think that's why things like Craigslist are falling from the sky, and good, healthy markets are blooming and can happen overnight. And so I think that's what we're hoping to try to do as we integrate the universe of candidates in and across all. Like, who knows if all these platforms are even going to be around 5 years from now?
Yeah.
But
who knows? Man, Facebook Marketplace is dangerous. I stay off of there, man. There's always so much good stuff on there. I got to really show restraint, a lot of cars. I'm in the cars. So it's incredible the amount of stuff in my area that I had no idea was out there. And, you can score some pretty good stuff. I've sold a lot of things.
Absolutely.
But it is lots of fun. So, well, awesome. Thanks so much for your time, so stay warm and dry out there, or up there, I guess.
Yeah.
And we'll see you on the flip side. I really appreciate your time today.
Awesome, Charles. Thanks. I appreciate the time.